And the life of Sarah was 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. Alas, the sun has set on our beloved matriarch Sarah. It's hard to imagine that the world can go on without her. And yet the Torah opens up with this week's Parsha with a strange verse. 120 years and 7 years? Why couldn't the Torah have said she was 127 years old? Instead, it says 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. Rashi brings down that when Sarah was 100 years old, she was free of sin like a 20-year-old. And at the age of 20, she was beautiful like a 7-year-old. Rashi teaches us that each period of her life stands on its own. But while the Torah is going out of its way to point out Sarah's life, how can we forget that she has just passed from this earth? And while the Malbim explains that only once a person has passed away can we really determine the quality of their life, we see no eulogy, at least not in this Parsha. Sarah would later become eulogized in the words of Mishlei. We'll get to that shortly. There's something extraordinary I've learned from this Parsha. It's a lesson that has helped me through many difficult times in life. Ironically, we're speaking about the life of Sarah, but it's what Avraham does in her death that really impresses upon me. He keeps busy. Now I must tell you, I've been no stranger to hardship, lo aleinu. But this lesson of keeping busy in times of trouble has been the most beneficial. There are times we go through in this life where we feel like we cannot go on. But Avraham does go on. As hard as it was, he keeps busy. And while this was a great loss to Avraham, there was also another man who was greatly mourning the loss of Sarah, and that is Yitzhack. But as it's brought down in Kohelet 1:5, the sun rises and the sun sets. As the sun was setting on Sarah, the sun would rise on a new matriarch, Rivka. But before we get into her story, I'd like to read the words that memorialized and eulogized our beloved matriarch Sarah. You will know them as the Eshet Hayel prayer, the woman of valor. A woman of valor who can find, her price is beyond pearls. Her husband relies on her, and he will lack no gain. She requites him with good and not with evil all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax, and she works it with the will of her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She rises when it is still night, and she gives food to her household and an allotted share to her maidens. She contemplates a field and purchases it. From the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. She girds her loins with vigor and strengthens her arms. When she advises that her merchandise is good, her lamp does not go out at night. She stretches forth her hands unto the distaff, and her hands support the spindle. She spreads out her hands to the poor man, and she stretches her hands out to the needy. She fears not for her household for snow, for all households are dressed in crimson. She makes beautiful bedspreads for herself. Fine linen and purple wool are in her remnant. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits with the elders of the land. She makes a cloak and sells it, and she gives a belt to the trafficker. Strength and beauty are her remnant, and she laughs at the last day. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and instruction of kindness is on her tongue. She supervises the ways of her household and does not eat bread of idleness. Her children rise and call her fortunate, also her husband, and praises her. Many women have acquired wealth, but you surpass them all. Charm is false and beauty is futile. A God-fearing woman is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and her deeds will praise her in the gates. These are the words of Chayei, the woman of valor. These are the words that every Jewish woman strives for. Now, while I must confess, I would not have been able to come up with a more fitting tribute, I would like to at least try by presenting you with the musical rendition of Chayei, one of my favorite versions, played on the Spanish guitar. You can follow this series, A Woman's Worth by Devorah Esther, on YouTube at Gimel Dalet 777. Click subscribe to be notified. If you've enjoyed this video or know someone who would, please share it. Tziko Limitzvot.